Click the first link in the description for the best Askreddit content. How to divide rent with boyfriend when he gets an extra room to himself. So me and my boyfriend are moving to a 2-bedroom. The reason we got a 2-bedroom is because he does music and has been wanting a good setup for that, and at our current 1-bedroom apartment it took up almost our whole living room and our biggest closet. It felt unfair to me as we were splitting rent and I had no space to put my stuff and he didn't really want me to use his desk, so basically he had a desk and all his gear set up in our living room and I had no space with things that were just mine. So we were talking about how much more he should pay and we said maybe he can pay $200 more than me to have his own music room, but now that I think of it, it doesn't sound like a great deal for me since he has a lot of space and I will only have the bedroom for my stuff, which isn't much space at all, and the living room is tiny so that we'll just have our couch, TV set up, etc. Second bedroom, his music room, is about a third of the whole apartment. It's a small apartment. How would you split the rent? I'm confused and need some advice. I just don't want to end up feeling resentful for him having much more space, but I also want to be reasonable. He makes about $500 more than me right now. Too long didn't read. Boyfriend and I are moving to a 2-bedroom, he gets his own room. How much more should he pay in rent? What is your primary goal? An equitable relationship by whatever compromise you can think of. Is your goal to pay less rent only? Do you want use of the room since you do pay for some of it? Think about what you'd be happy with before you talk to him. Situation 1. If he's using 100% of the room 100% of the time, then you should divide the rent by square footage used. As the user Krugel commented wisely. Situation 2. He let you store some of your stuff in his music room? You could go into the music room occasionally when you need your stuff, but besides that it would be used by him primarily. If you are able to use it for storage, then I'd say he wouldn't have to pay as much as he might in situation 1. But he should still pay more than you if he wants dibs on the room. This might be a good compromise if situation 1 is not feasible/desirable for both of you. Situation 3. Would he let you use the room for your hobbies too? He probably doesn't play music 24/7, right? So you could split the use of the room. In this case you would pay equal rent and both get equal use of the hobby room. He should pay the difference in cost from the 1-bedroom to the 2-bedroom, plus his half of the original rent. If the 1-bedroom cost you $800 and the 2-bedroom costs $1,500, he should pay $1,100. Half the original $800, assuming you were splitting rent in half, $400, plus the $700 additional to rent the 2-bedroom. Edit, made up numbers. Divide the square footage by the amount of rent. Then tally up the common areas of the total space to figure out the equal space. Then he pays for the footage of the room. You haven't mentioned how you split it now, but in general I tend to think splitting by income is more equitable. I don't think it's a bad thing to have spaces for your stuff. It sounds more like the issue is there isn't enough space for your extra stuff as well. Why aren't you looking for a place that has enough space for what both of you want/need? Well, I don't need that much space because I'm not trying to have a home recording studio. Also, we live in LA and rent is not cheap here. Do you split all your expenses? Utilities, groceries, car, gas, eating out, etc.? If so, then you might want to consider asking him to be more reasonable with the rent, or ask him to pick up utilities or another expense that would take some financial pressure off you. I bet they must split everything down to the cent. Precisely. Moving into his place. Advice. Update. Thanks all for the replies. I've got plenty to mull over now. Some great advice. My boyfriend and I have been together for over 2 years. We've met each other's friends and family. Spend about 50% of nights per week together. I'm still in my parents' house, he has his own house. We've naturally arrived at the point where it makes sense and we're ready for me to move in. Neither of us have lived with ASO before though. Anything in particular we should prepare ourselves for? My BF bought his house just before we started dating, so I've seen the work that's went into fixing up, and the work still left to do. There is still some major decorating etc. I don't want to move into an incomplete house, so we've put a lot of effort into fixing up to both of our tastes. I'm happy splitting the cost for furniture and that, but he feels he should be putting the costs up for some of the bigger things, which he says he really should have sorted by now anyway. I don't want to feel as though things aren't mine too though. Should I be firm with going 50-50? Other finances also to be discussed. What is fair? No matter the outcome, he'll be a bit better off financially, but I'm not sure how I feel about contributing towards mortgage payments for a property that is not mine. I also don't want my BF to feel like my landlord. He hasn't got expressed any expectations for me to do this, I'm just speculating. I'd be happy taking over some of the bills and just splitting things like groceries etc. What do people think? We're both pretty excited, like looking forward to simple things like being able to spend evenings together after long shifts without it being second thought. Hope we can keep that novelty up. Smiley face. Too long didn't read. Advice for couple living together, finances and other things. Any money that goes into decorating the house, in terms of bigger renovations, should come from his pocket. He is totally correct, he would be the only one to benefit if you did split up, so big stuff is on him. Shows he is likely a good guy, BTW. In terms of smaller things like furniture, just buy stuff individually, even if you decide together, so it will be easy to sort out if things don't work out. In terms of rent, it's totally fair that you should be paying some rent. His advantage to owning the property is the wealth that accrues combined with a lower monthly payment than rent. Your advantage, unless you buy into the property, or get married, is that your rent will be much lower than it would be in an equally sized rental property. Plus you get a bigger say in how it looks. If he's wealthy enough, he can choose not to charge you rent, but that doesn't mean you don't get a say about stuff. He won't be your landlord, it's your home, both of yours, but it's his house. You are helping him, in terms of the money, but that doesn't mean it is a landlord-tenant relationship. By the nature of it being your home, you have a right to an equal opinion, but you also don't have to pay anything more towards it. In terms of amounts to pay for rent, and any shared expenses in a situation with unequal incomes, I just go with a simple ratio. Say he earns 4,000 per month after tax, and you earn 1,000, so it's 4-to-1. He pays 4/5 of any shared expenses, you pay 1/5. You both lose the same proportion of your income, and you both have the same proportion left over for individual expenses, or gifts. You adjust this as the ratio changes, of course. It means everyone is contributing equally hard, as opposed to a blunt 50-50, which is equal, but not really loving, and not much of a partnership. So if his mortgage was 1,000 piece, your rent should be 200 piece. Think about your living situation if you were moving out on your own. Could you afford a place by yourself? Would you need a roommate? Do some math based on those things. Side note, I think everyone should learn how to live alone and be self-sufficient before moving in with SO. If you all aren't married, I would advise against putting much of your finances into any costly projects/repairs in the house. Beyond that, you two need to talk and come to an agreement about finances. No, it's awkward, but strangers on the internet don't know anything about your relationship or the financial situations either of you are in. The absolute worst thing you can do is not have clear communication about this stuff before moving in. So get off Reddit and go talk to your BF, and don't get in your head too much. Living together is great, but the only way it can possibly work is if you guys talk to each other. Think of it more like paying rent and not putting money into his mortgage. I don't think it will be like a landlord. You would have to be paying rent anyway. But yeah, you could pick up other bills instead. I'm not sure on paying for furniture and stuff. I moved in with my now wife right after the army. I didn't have jack shit cause I lived in the barracks. I don't think we bought any big items for a while, but we split a lot of the littler things like shelves and wall decorations. My only other advice is it's okay to not want to spend an evening together. There are many times me and my wife will only talk for an hour hour after work and then a bit during dinner, but then be in separate rooms the rest of the evening doing our own things. Most people need some space occasionally. My partner and I had to move in together for about 3 to 4 months earlier this year because of COVID circumstances, so I have some advice based on that, plus having lived with roommates before. Not about finances at all, but sit down and have a really good conversation about cleaning. What does clean mean to you and the family you come from? Does it mean spotless? Or does it mean a little messy but no active infestations? What is a pet peeve you have about household chores? My partner struggles with doing dishes because it kills his ADHD. I hate doing the trash because the garage is spooky. Will you two clean up for each other? Will you do a rotating chore run? This is not a thing you can just figure out when you get to it. It can really build up resentments, and you both have to nip those in the bud. Something we started doing 2 months in, and are still doing now that we're in separate spaces again, is doing a weekly check-in. Sit down, put your phones down, be calm and fed and watered, and talk about how it's going. Do not schedule over this unless you are both genuinely needing to skip it or are able to reschedule it. This has honestly felt like mini therapy for both of us and has helped us bring up a lot of small snags and figure them out. I think it's also taught us how to actively listen to each other and how to communicate issues. I think these talks can also help you work through how finances are working, and if there need to be tweaks made. I promise, even if you spend a lot of time together, it's the little things that can build up. Good luck! Exclamation mark. My 27M romantic interest, 25F, is a lot more sexual than me. I just want to give her what she wants, but I'm struggling, mildly NSFW and a bit long sorry. Update, after reading all the responses to this thread, so many more than I expected, thank you guys so much. I sat down and had a serious talk with myself about where my feelings were coming from, and after sorting through some feelings I had been trying to ignore, I realized my issues stemmed mainly from my own insecurities and low self-image. I opened up about all of this with A, and she brought up a really good point that some of you here have pointed out as well, that she chose me. I guess I knew that on some level already, but hearing it from her just did wonders for my self-confidence. Physically we are still taking it one step at a time, but we are doing even better than we were before. And I have all of you to thank for all the kind words and encouragement that convinced me that it was okay to be more open. I can't thank you guys enough. Some backstory: I am not a virgin, but I have only had sex with 2 women. One I was in a relationship with for about a year, and we had a lot of communication issues and eventually stopped being intimate altogether before things fell apart. The other was my best friend since high school, and it was very awkward, and our friendship hasn't been the same since. In any case, I don't have a lot of experience, and it's been probably about 3 years since I last had sex, and I have a naturally low sex drive, so that has been perfectly okay with me. Then about 2 months ago A came into my life. I've never been more crazy about someone than I am about her, and she feels the same. Things are great right now, and even though we've agreed not to try and put labels on where we are for the moment, I keep catching myself imagining all those future milestones with her by my side. The only problem is that she has a much higher libido than I do, and she doesn't understand how I can not constantly want sex. We haven't had much direct contact as of yet, but there is lots of over the phone going on, which I never really did before and I kinda suck at. I am very physically attracted to her, but every time I think we might be about to do something I get freaked out, tongue-tied, anxiety spikes, etc. And if I have some deep-seated intimacy issues or just some weird mental block I can't get over. It feels like being a nervous awkward virgin again tbh, and I hate it. The last thing I want is for her to think that I don't want her like that, because I really do. It's just that she's a lot more upfront and less reserved than I am, and it's kind of intimidating. I also have a lot of insecurities and body image issues. And I guess just the simple fact that someone like her could be so into someone like me is something I'm having a lot of trouble accepting, and I think it's messing with my head. How do I get over something like that? I honestly wish that I could just wake up tomorrow and tell her to come over ASAP, let's go. But I just don't exude virile masculine confidence like that, and I'm worried that I'll just never be enough for her no matter how much I want to be or how much she says it's okay. I just want to give her what she wants, but I don't even know where to start getting over my issues. Too long didn't read. New potential partner and I really click and are crazy attracted to each other. We want to start being intimate, but apparently any sexually charged situations turn me into a 13-year-old virgin and I don't know why. I don't want this to be the thing that gets in the way of something wonderful but don't know how to get over it. I just want to give you a bit of the female perspective here. IF23 was recently seeing a guy M22 and the first 3 times we tried to have sex he could not get hard, like at all. He later told me that the reason was he liked me so much and found me so attractive that it gave him really bad performance anxiety. Honestly found it really sweet that he liked me enough to be nervous around me and did what I could to reassure him and make him feel comfortable, and we never had that problem again. Just talk to her. If she's not understanding, she's not the kind of girl you want in your life anyway. Honestly, this was an issue my boyfriend, 22M, and I, 24F, had. He hadn't had a whole lot of experience, and while he likes sex and being intimate, it always made him nervous. He communicated these issues, and that's the best way to go about this. Let her know what you told us, and reassure her that you are very attracted to her. For tips when you want to start being intimate and you're nervous about it, start slow. We didn't have penetrative sex for a while, and stuck with just foreplay and getting to know each other's bodies. Oh, and a lot of asking questions throughout. Just things like, how do you masturbate? What are areas on the body you do and don't like being touched when we're intimate? Are you comfortable with X, etc. And if either of you are unsure, explore it a bit and be sure to check in with each other. Good luck up, wishing you a lot of luck with your new potential partner. Definitely seconding explaining as well as you have here. Don't give her time to get in her head trying to figure out if it's her. I would add that you're basically the same as my BF and me. He has a lower libido than I do and had only dated 3 people by 29. It can be an issue and I was frustrated with how much stuff I needed to spell out. I highly recommend going to r/sex. Get women's perspectives and read up on men's suggestions. Thanks. I've tried explaining as well as I can, but it's hard to explain an issue that I just recently realized I had and don't yet understand. I try to remind her that it's got nothing to do with her attractiveness or my feelings about her, but I know that deep down she isn't sure if I'm being honest. From what she's told me, she's never met a guy who wasn't horny all the time, and I know that some people think I'm abnormal. Also, just saw your edit. Thanks for the recommendation, I'll go check it out. Edited, attentiveness to attractiveness. The only advice I have is to be upfront with her about these things. She will feel the effect, so she may as well know the reasoning behind it. Being in the know gives her the chance to understand it's not her attractiveness or anything that could negatively impact her self-esteem, and then she can support you with yours. If love an update by the way, this story made me feel invested and I'm rooting for you 230.